I'm here to make sure you understand everything that's about to happen so you feel as comfortable as possible.
What happens now?
Ladies first.
Hi, I'm Scarlett Pomers. I play Patient in What If We Kissed on the Operating Table. I am here with...
I'm Bart Mixon. I provided a couple of special makeup effects for Scarlett and others in the same project.
Yes, and you did a wonderful, amazing job, by the way. So let's talk a little bit about your origin story, actually, because I really don't know anything about how you first came to be in this industry. So where did it all kind of start for you? Like, as a kid, were you watching a lot of like monster movies and kind of already knowing, hey, I kind of dig this, maybe I could get into this?
Definitely. I guess I'm what they used to call, or they still call, a monster kid. I grew up in the 60s. I was born in 1958, but I'm a fan of 1960s pop culture, I guess, comic books, movies. I either wanted to be a comic book artist, a stop motion animator, or a makeup effects artist. The original King Kong's my all-time favorite movie, the greatest movie ever made. Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe, the George Powell film, Tony
Nice.
Randall, that kind of introduced me into the world of makeup, where Tony Randall plays 6 or 7 characters, in various makeups. So
Yeah.
that was the first time that light went off as to, hey, I didn't even know that was possible. Obviously, a Planet of the Apes fan. In the 70s, I became a Rick Baker fan.
Who isn't? Who isn't a Rick Baker fan?
Exactly. And I had the good fortune of meeting him. I'm from Houston, Texas. I met Rick at a convention in Houston in 1977, right after Star Wars had come out. And he made the mistake of giving me his contact information. So I stayed in touch with him, visited him frequently, worked for him after I moved out to LA in the 80s. Stayed in touch with him, worked for him on a number of shows. Pretty much self-taught in terms of makeup effects, a lot of learning on the job. I was lucky to work on a lot of low-budget stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street 2 or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, or again...
One of my faves.
That was a fun one, but kind of learning as you go type stuff. So, but yeah, a lot of self-taught and learning on the job, and just being a fan of the art, and just looking into how you do it or how I can do it. Like being from Texas, sometimes I knew the right way to do things, but I couldn't afford or couldn't find
Right.
material, so I'd have to come up with my own techniques, which once I moved out to LA, sometimes I would use some of that.
Yeah.
So just kind of thinking on your feet type stuff.
I love that. I think a lot of creatives, no matter whether they're an actor or working in makeup or the whole kind of gamut of creativity, you learn to adapt and kind of figure things out on your own, because you don't always have a mentor or a teacher to kind of show you the ropes, right?
Right.
So you kind of just have to learn from visual cues and stuff like that. So
Right. And just thinking, I think this might be one of the problems with some of the film or makeup schools that they have these days, is that they teach you, I don't know that they necessarily teach you how to problem solve as so much as like, oh, this is how you do this. Whereas
Right.
when we were doing it, we'd be like, crap, we got to do this. We can't afford to do it this way. We got to come up with our own solution. And again, especially being like in a place like Texas where there was no film industry and barely any materials, you would just have to learn how to improvise and make do. So it did make for people who could think on their feet. And years later, when I was working on some of the Star Trek TV shows for Mike Westmore, who was a great person to work with, he gave a lot of up-and-coming people their starts, but he would recognize people like me that came from a more of a problem-solving background. So we were the guys that he would give like the kind of mix and
Figure
match
this out.
Well, yeah, literally he would give you a pile of stuff
Yeah.
and say, here, they call them Westmore aliens because we just pulled them out, stuff off the shelves and just built them. But he knew there were certain people that could, assemble the stuff and make something out of it. And then there were other people that were fine makeup artists, but you had to kind of give them, the stuff.
Yeah.
And again, nothing wrong with those guys, and they did good work too. But again, he would recognize the handful of us that would like, okay, I can literally give this guy a pile of crap and he'll make something out of it. And often we did.
That's great. That's such a film industry thing of having that skill, again, whether you're an actor or in makeup or costuming or whatever, like just being able to be given a pile of whatever or just a really basic kind of guideline and running with it. So as you were kind of talking about being innovative and, you know, kind of being able to do things on the fly, that brings me to a question that our director actually brilliantly came up with, which is, was there ever a time on a job where either something kind of blew up in your face a little bit or things were just really unexpected, any mishaps that you kind of had to sit there and go, okay, like I'm gonna bring all of my ideas, all of my training, everything and kind of figure this out? Does anything stand out to you in that regard?
I mean, you're definitely just drawing from past experiences anyway. I think I've been pretty lucky in that most stuff has kind of gone off as planned.
Good.
And if something comes to mind later, we can revisit it. But
Sure.
I mean, I do like to be prepared. And I've had friends that I've worked for that I guess I'd kind of annoy them a little bit because I'd ask like too many questions. They'd be
Right.
like, "Oh, you want to come work for me tomorrow?" I'm like, "Well, what are we doing?" Just bring your stuff. And it's like, "Well, what stuff? What do I need?" You know, and and they're like, "Jesus, just you know," and it's like because I just want to know because I did a commercial shoot for a friend, and he was like, you know, I was like, "What should I bring?" He goes, "Bring everything," and I'm like,
That's a lot of stuff.
It is a lot of stuff. So I bring all this crap, and then it turns out we're doing zombies, and I'm like, well, you know, if you would have just said zombies, then at least I would have been thinking zombies. Because now I got to like come up with a zombie paint scheme or something like on the fly, whereas I could have been thinking about it. So, I mean, information is good. You know, the more we know, now I understand there's secret projects that you can't talk about, but you can still tell me if we're doing gore, we're doing old age,
Zombies.
you know, we're doing zombies, doing fantasy, whatever, something, just give me some parameters. I like to be as prepared as I can, but then on the other hand, like on Halloween 2 with Rob Zombie, he would literally just come in the trailer in the morning like, hey, what are you guys doing? I'm thinking today we're going to have a body pit with, 40 dead people in it. And we're like, okay. What, like after breakfast? Yeah. And it's like, oh, all right. And I mean, it's not to say he wasn't, most overall we were prepared, but he would throw us some surprises.
Some curveballs.
Yeah. Which was cool. And Wayne Toth, who does all the Rob stuff anyway, he's a longtime friend. He was very prepared. So he had a lot of stuff that when Rob would say like, oh, we want a scar on this girl's stomach that we hadn't talked about, then we could pull some stuff out of his stock and go, oh, okay, yeah, we can make that work,
That's awesome.
So I don't think he ever asked anything of us that we couldn't deliver.
Right.
But he definitely kept us on our toes.
Now that you've mentioned Halloween 2, let's veer a little bit into Rob Zombie land here because I'm a huge fan of him. We talked a lot when I was in the makeup chair during the filming of our movie about how much I love Rob, how much I love House of 1,000 Corpses, which you worked on.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about what you did on that movie. What was the experience like? Because that was Rob's first movie. And I know there was a lot of weird kind of production stuff going on. It changed studios a couple times. What was that experience like? What did you do on the project?
Well, again, my friend Wayne Toth was the makeup designer. So he brought me in specifically to do the Tiny character.
Tiny,
the
yeah.
Burn. Yeah. And so I worked predominantly on him. He worked it seems like most of his scenes were done at one kind
pretty close together,
a week or two. That was a full head and hand prosthetics. It was
hands too.
Yeah, it was very elaborate. I think one of the first times I did him, which I don't think he had worked on movies before, so he wasn't really that familiar with the etiquette or just the way stuff worked. So like he didn't want to ask the wardrobe people to help him get dressed. So so like after spending hours making up these prosthetics on his hands, and he went and put his own shoes on, and he's like putting them on with his finger, and he just shredded the prosthetics. It's like, that's their job. Let them do that. But he was a very nice guy. He was perfect for that character.
Oh yeah.
There was some other stuff I helped with. The Bill Moseley's character, he's got like a skull.
Right, the skull paint
job. I think I may have established that for Wayne. I mean, he was like, skull face.
Come up with something.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything too crazy, but I'm sure there were some little odds and ends, but Tiny predominantly. And then I do recall helping on with Moseley a little bit. I'd worked with Bill on Chainsaw 2.
Let's talk a little bit about Texas Chainsaw 2, because that's also one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite franchises of all time. I'm totally obsessed. So what was that experience like? And that was kind of Bill Moseley's kind of breaking role.
Yeah, I think that was his breakout, or maybe even his first role.
So did you work on the Chop Top makeup? That's
did.
Pretty iconic makeup.
Oh, it was, Tom Savini was our boss on that.
Right.
I think there's a saying, you're only as good as your crew. So he wisely assembled a great crew. I mean, I was pretty far down the pecking order, but he had like Sean McEnroe was a Rick Baker, protege who did Chop Top. John Vulich, who went on to do Buffy and Babylon 5, he did the old man makeup. He had Mitch Devane, who sculpted practically everything that Greg Canham ever applied. He was doing the Leatherface mask. So I mean, he had a really dynamite crew. I was mainly doing a little bit of lab work. The one thing I did get to sculpt for the show was there was a gag where a guy got his hand cut off, and they were going to have an amputee, reacting, with a prosthetic on his stump, and then they're going to have the old hand through the, false bottom with a severed stump, with it reacting. So I sculpted, I molded. John Vulich did the makeup test, and I remember when I was taking the cast of his stump, because he had lost his hand fairly recently, and I'm like, "Are you going to be okay?" And he's like, "You bet. This is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Toby Hooper. This is great." So
we love a good attitude.
Very enthusiastic. So I'm like, okay. So anyway, comes the day for the makeup test. Vulich puts the stump on him, gets it made up, puts some blood on it. The guy's like, too soon.
Oh, no.
And he literally ran out the door, we never saw him again.
Oh, no.
So I remember I was coming in to see like, oh yeah, how's the test going? It's like, was that my guy just going down the street?
No.
And he's like, so the one thing I did for the movie personally, then most of it got cut out. But my main function on that, I did help Sean McEnroe occasionally apply Moseley's Chop Top makeup. I would babysit it on set. I was mainly the set guy. So they'd make the guys up, send them to set, and then I would maintain them and watch them. I did do Leatherface, his lips and his eye makeup, what you see.
Through the mask. Yeah.
He had like some big ulcery sores on his mouth that I made those, those were just build up. We didn't have prosthetics for those. I just, created them every day from scratch.
Was there a separate person for teeth too? Were you guys kind of all working on a little bit of everything?
Pretty much the guy who.
Because everybody had some gnarly.
They did have some cool teeth. I know, like Sean may have been the tooth guy. Now that you mention it, I'm pretty sure he did. I know he did Bill's, and I'm pretty sure he did because Bill's was a relatively simple makeup compared to some of the others. I think he probably had time to do the other characters' teeth. Plus, he coming from Rick Baker's, American Werewolf in London and Videodrome and stuff like that for Rick. He knew.
He knew his teeth.
He knew how to do stuff. So I was on set. It was shot in Austin in the summer. It was hot as hell.
Oof.
Some of those sets were like 120 degrees. Toby Hooper was a character. He was cool. It's Dr. Pepper all day.
Yes.
I remember we had the Nubbins, the dummy of the hitchhiker.
His zombie brother at that point.
Yeah, mummified. One day they're jumping around filming with that, and the eye popped out. And
oh no!
Toby's like, I suppose that's the only damn eye. So we're like looking. Oh, here it is. So then we like extra glue to make sure it didn't come out.
Was that the only dummy? Like, was there just one, and you kind of had to make sure that one stayed intact for the whole shoot?
We had a hero and a stunt.
Okay, good.
But
that's a lot to put one dummy through.
Right. Yeah, it did end up
that whole shebang.
Yeah, it took a lot of abuse. But it was a cool, a lot of fun makeup effects. Tom Savini was a fun guy to work with. I mean, obviously, we all knew him from Dawn of the Dead and Friday the 13th, and Martin. So it was a fun experience. It was in Texas, so I'm from Houston, so it was in my own backyard. Virtually, we shot it in Austin. I had to quit my day job to work on that, and then shortly after that I got on RoboCop, which was also shot in Dallas. So things were finally kind of happening, so then I moved out to LA right after Robo.
Nice.
But it was the script, I think Kit Carson wrote it. I thought it read really well. It's 180 degrees different than the original Chainsaw, which I loved.
Oh, yeah.
That one had such a nice, visceral, documentary type feel.
Yeah.
This one was very
different
comical,
vibe.
very over the top. It took me a while to warm up to it. I think it wasn't until about a 20th anniversary screening that they had here in town somewhere, and Caroline Williams was there, and some of the other makeup guys. And I
love her, by the way.
Yeah,
I got to meet her at a Monsterpalooza, and she's the sweetest person. She's so cool.
Yeah, no, she was very cool. She was very nice.
Bill is great too. Bill is great too.
Different kind of
cool. He's much more
vibe.
chill, more laid back,
Yeah.
but Caroline's just like the sweetest. I love her.
But finally, at this 20th anniversary, I was watching it, and I was like, oh, okay, now I get it.
You get it now,
So,
yeah.
So it took me a while to warm up to it. Again, I think it was just my preconceived. I was wanting another, Chainsaw.
Yeah,
something just real
more like the
raw
original, yeah.
And then this was, Dennis Hopper was very interesting. But that was, and that was cool. It's like, wow, it's Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
And but thankfully, prior to that, I'd done a movie with Shelley Winters, so at least I'd done a couple of things with some name people.
Right.
So I wasn't too,
You're like, I'm used to this.
I think Tim Curry was the first guy that I
Oh,
got.
wow.
Got a
What did you work with him on?
Stephen King's It, the Pennywise.
That's right. Okay,
So
yeah.
That I think was the first time I was starstruck.
A little starstruck,
or
yeah.
like, oh, geez, I hope I don't screw up.
I mean, who wouldn't be around Tim
Oh, yeah,
Curry?
Tim
Although
Curry.
I hear he's quite cool and very nice.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, he was a good collaborator. And
good.
Yeah, so
Very
he
good.
had his ideas and opinions, and the director, and so it was a nice amalgam of the three of us. Yeah.
It's nice when a set environment has room for collaboration, when the because I mean, some directors are a little more like, nope, it's got to be just like
Right.
this, and then an actor comes in, they're like, well, I can't really work with this, or whatever, and you kind of have to figure things out. But it's nice when there's like a collaborative vibe and everybody's kind of chipping in and bringing what they got to the table, you know?
And I mean, some films allow that.
Do you like it when an actor has input, or is it kind of just like, shut up and let me put the prosthetic on it?
Well, it depends.
I'm sure.
Depends
I'm
on
sure.
the makeup, depends on the actor, and it depends on the suggestions.
Right.
I mean, I've been on some things, again, like the Pennywise was very much, the director had his requirements. I had certain things either for a technical or just aesthetic reasons, and then Tim Curry had some things, and again, I think we met in
the middle.
Yeah. And it was all for the better. But I've been on other things where they might have a suggestion, and you're like, well, it's not really,
Kind of too late for that.
well, or it's just like, you signed on to play whatever, a blue, and so that's what it is. So shut up and let me do that.
And ultimately, in the end, like, it's not really up to you in the end. Like, you have that input as the makeup artist or as the, person who oversees the makeup, right? But in the end, like, you have to also hear what the director initially wants and producers and all kinds of stuff, right?
Right. Well, and it's commercial art, for lack of a better word. But on some shows, like on, again, Stephen King's It, I was the makeup effects designer. So I did have a certain amount of weight.
Right.
On other shows, I'm just there executing someone else's, like any of the Rick Baker shows I've done. I'm there doing, Rick Baker's designs.
So I didn't know actually that you worked on a lot of the Star Trek shows, and I worked on Star Trek Voyager when I was a little tyke for a few years. I was recurring on that show, and
That's where I know you from.
Yeah, that might be it. So did you work on Voyager? Like, did we ever cross paths at some point and we just don't remember? Like, what was the story with your work on Star Trek?
I did do, in the makeup union, we have what they call day checking, where you just, they have their regular on-staff people, and then it's like, oh, we got 20 extra aliens, so they bring in, 10 extra makeup artists. So that was my main function on both DS9 and Voyager. I did more time on DS9. I did do a little bit on Voyager.
And for folks watching, those two shows filmed right across from each other at Paramount Studios.
Yeah.
Like, literally, one stage here, going back and forth.
Right. I mean, the makeup lab was the same for both, and then they would have their own specific
little trailers.
Trailers, yeah. But so there was a lot of cross-pollination where, you might come in to do something for one show, and then like I watched 7 of 9 a few times. I'd whoever was doing her makeup would have to go home for their turnaround, so I'd come in and just stay with her for the last couple hours.
Yeah.
So unfortunately very much more or much less on Voyager. And that was the one that Picardo was on, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which I've known Bob for a while. So
amazing actor.
Oh, I love him. That's a show I wanted to be on. Because Picardo is on.
Oh, okay.
But then of course that's the one I get to work on the least. But at least I'd go over there and say hi to him.
Well, DS9, there was probably more kind of big scenes with a lot of aliens, right? Because it's on a space station.
Yeah.
So
No, just by virtue of the nature of the show, there was more for us to do. But so, and you were what? Was it a Dabo?
It was just 4 little horns here on the forehead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
Cool.
I was a half alien, so I didn't get like a full. But you know what? Like it was a good thing because we were just talking about Ethan Phillips, who played Neelix. He was my character's godfather on the show, and he came in there every day at like 5 a.m. and just sleep in the chair while they're putting this huge latex piece on him every day. And and then I pop in like 4 hours later. Right. Okay, let's do my horns.
Yeah, I did his stunt double a couple of times.
Oh, cool.
So it's basically the same makeup, just on. Yeah. So it's just as involved.
Prosthetic nose. I remember he used to honk through the nose to like make me laugh when I was a little kid.
Good.
Just really funny, cool guy.
It's funny he did that to make me laugh.
Yes.
I remember on Hellboy 2, Selma Blair came on set one day, and Ron Perlman's in full makeup. Doug
full
Jones
Hellboy.
Is in full. Everybody else is head to toe prosthetics and costumes. She's in like black jeans and a sleeveless shirt,
little, simple beauty makeup.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh man, it's so hot in here." And
she's, girl,
just rubbing their noses in it. She would always.
That's funny.
She was not.
She didn't have to do too much.
Yeah, but she had a good sense of humor, so she would
Hopefully they did too, because I know those, especially like the latex and stuff, can get really sweaty. So
it can. Well, and I mean Perlman's whole career is built around wearing prosthetics. Yeah, and Doug Jones, you can't ask for a nicer person to glue stuff on. And then I was doing Luke Goss, so he was, it was his face and.
Was that Nuada the character? I think his name is Nuada, like the white.
Yeah, the white albino.
That's a really pretty makeup.
That was. Thank you. That was
very nice.
Very challenging.
Really,
it's hard. The prosthetic was like tissue thin.
Because it looks like it's his face,
right. And
like,
it's his full face is covered. Wow. But I remember when they were sculpting it, the shop Spectral Motion that was building it, they were also dealing with the Hellboy makeup. And the first month I was on Perlman helping with his application. And then the Luke's makeup artist quit, and then so I moved over to do him. But I would go by the shop while they were sculpting Luke's makeup, and I'd look at it and go like, man, I'm glad I'm not applying that. Because it was just paper thin, and then cut to a month later. It's like, sticking this
shouldn't have said that.
Exactly, but he was a cool guy. I mean, he was very into it. I remember one day he comes in, he's like, he goes, I went to a psychic or something, and they tell me there's a demon has got me by the throat, and I'm like, what? Like now? And
right this minute?
So you're kind of like, oh, okay. Well, does he mind if I, paint your throat? But he was, he was very like into the character, and so he was an interesting experience. But yeah, he was a cool guy. He'd bring in like smoked salmon, and we'd have scrambled eggs and salmon.
Oh my gosh!
At 4:00 in the morning. But his makeup, it took me probably 2 or 3 hours just to do him.
Real quick, for those watching and playing at home, we're shooting this in an art studio in downtown LA. There's a lot of trains happening, coming and going. So if you're hearing some strange noises,
that's what that.
It's a hellbound train, baby.
Exactly. That's what that is.
That's what that is.
But
please continue.
Thank you. But like say, it would take me 3 hours to apply his prosthetics.
Oh wow.
Then it took the hair department.
So subtle. I mean,
it was very. Wow. You had to go very slow.
Yeah.
But then it took him, I think, another hour and a half to 2 hours to get his wig on.
Right.
And then it took another hour and a half to 2 hours to get his wardrobe on.
Yeah.
So I think it was about an hour and a half for each of those. So like after I was done with him, I had to sit there for 3 to 4 hours before we'd even go on set. So that was pretty rough.
Yeah.
I think there was one period where over 3 days, I got 8 hours of sleep. We were getting like shit turnarounds and I'm assuming it's okay to cuss on this thing. But
You good.
But it was
You
a,
good.
a very cool character. He was a cool guy. Guillermo del Toro's an interesting character too, but he's a fun director to have worked with.
Awesome director.
And he came from a makeup effects background, so
Right.
at least you can't bullshit him.
Yeah.
Other directors, you go, well, technical reasons, you can't do this because of whatever. But he's like, yeah,
I know it.
you're lying to me, But and same thing, like Zombie knows his way around that stuff.
Right.
So. Yeah.
And actually, going back to Rob Zombie, you brought up earlier that I also forgot, because we talked about this a little bit when you were doing my prosthetics on this movie, that you have a credit on the Hellbilly Deluxe album, right?
I think Volume 2.
Volume 2,
But yes,
right.
Which, if you had asked me even the day before that happened, hey, you think you'll ever get a credit on a Rob Zombie album? I'd be like, oh, you're nuts. But
That's
yes,
awesome.
I believe the graphics for that album, it's him and his band are all
They're like
beat up.
Yeah.
So, again.
Which a lot of work goes into that kind of makeup.
Oh, yeah.
People don't even realize. It's like, you just throw some blood. No, like, to make it look realistic, you really got to get in there, right?
Every cut was a prosthetic. And,
Yeah.
And then you don't want to I just put a cut on this guy's cheek, so I don't want to put it in the same place
Yeah.
on this next guy. But again, that was a Wayne Toth project, and at least we shot that in Wayne's shop, which is about a 2-minute walk from my house. So I was
perfect.
That was like a dream job.
That's perfect. Yeah.
But so you just never know what's gonna
Pop up.
yeah, and sometimes it'll be just something like extra cool like that.
Yeah.
And just being on Raw. I mean, I did House of a Thousand Corpses, Halloween 2,
3 from Hell,
3 from Hell, 31. I think Halloween 2 and
nice.
31 I worked on the most, and then some of the others were,
And those are all very effects heavy, like makeup effects heavy.
Pretty much all of his stuff.
All of his stuff. Yeah. So good gig.
Yeah, and even like when I'm not on the show, like on Lords of Salem, there's like a little demon baby.
demon guy. Yeah.
But again, Wayne's a buddy of mine, and I was visiting his shop, and he showed me the head, and he's like, "Yeah, Vern Troyer's stunt double."
I was about to ask, is there a person in there, or was it a puppet? Okay.
It was Vern Troyer who played Mini-Me.
Yeah.
It was his stunt double.
Nice.
So I go, well, I built an alien costume for Vern for Men in Black 1.
Oh, nice.
So I loaned Wayne my body mold, and
There
then
you go.
he got a pull out of it, and then tore the stomach open, and the guts are hanging out. But again, it's just like helping out a friend. So he could have given me a credit, goddammit. But anyway, so
That's
it was
my mold.
That's right. I let you have that for free. But so it's kind of a close knit community. So there's a lot of just
exchange,
friends helping friends and that kind of stuff. So that's it's
think
always fun when I'm working with buddies.
Yeah, I think people don't even realize too, like especially with costuming too, a lot of stuff gets reused for other movies, and I've seen some funny like kind of Instagram pages that will talk about like this costume has been used in this and this and this and this,
Right.
and that's like their whole premise for their account,
Right.
So I think people don't even realize that until they're like really paying attention.
Especially like stuff that'll end up in background. I mean,
absolutely.
Typically, at least the featured stuff is unique for that,
Right,
custom. But certainly recycling wardrobe and we're talking about like gore makeups and stuff. I mean, those will turn up in multiple because it's it's
masks.
molds
stuff,
for a broken nose or whatever. So that's in fact there was a couple of things that I'd sculpted. At one point, I was trying to see how many different movies I could. I had like a kind of a zombie-ish looking character that I did for this show Danger Island, and then I used it in the Double Dragon movie, and I used it in some video game, I think. And so I was
you just kind of tweak it a little bit.
Just change the color, or different guy wearing it. Particularly if it's a thinner, smaller piece like a forehead, or I mean like that. Those pieces that
we did. Yeah.
I mean, you stick that on somebody else, and it's gonna
look totally different on like a grown man's face as opposed to mine. Yeah.
Or in a different place, you put it on the arm, you put it on whatever. So there's a lot of flexibility and versatility that you can get out of these prosthetics.
Lots of little pieces. Yeah. I've worked in film and TV since I was 3 years old, and but I love movies. And especially as Sydney, our director, knows, I love horror movies. I love the horror genre. It's a passion for me, and I think it has a really important function in cinema. I think it's cathartic for people, and it's exciting, and it teaches us a lot about ourselves, which I think is something Guillermo del Toro kind of talked about once, about how horror teaches us what we fear and who we are as people because of what we fear. And I really agree with that. So I think that cinema is important, for humanity.
All
and
right,
I
sure.
think that horror has a really important place within cinema. So thank you for your service.
You're very welcome. Very well put. I couldn't say it any better. So.
Thank you. And thank you for chatting with us today. I really appreciate it. And it was a lot of fun. So thank you.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Keep on making spooky stuff. Keep on keeping on.
I'll do my best.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Hi, I'm Sydney Mills. I'm the writer and director of What If We Kissed on the Operating Table. We're raising funds for post-production right now. That means things like color correction, visual effects, sound design, mixing, everything that enhances the film's unique texture and highlights the cast and crew's incredible work. If you believe that we need more dark, daring, female-led films, then please support What If We Kissed on the Operating Table. Help us bring this tender, strange, and terrifying world to life. Check out our links, our Seed and Spark, our Instagram, our Facebook, and my website. They will all have information about the movie and how you can participate, support us, and share.
We're ready for you.